Today we're talking about Kat Von D's Lock-It Tattoo Foundation. I'm going to give you a full rundown on everything you need to know about this, including a demonstration of how well it actually covers tattoos. I myself don't actually have tattoos, but I enlisted a friend to lend me his tattoos. If you came here for that, to see if they might cover your tattoos, I will definitely show you how well it actually works later on in this video. All right, let's start with colors and shades. This comes in 18 different colors. I have different shades for pink undertones, neutral undertones, warm undertones. I pretty much think you can find something that's compatible with your skin tone from these 18 different choices. I chose the color Light 44, which is for light complexions with beige undertone. I think the first big thing that I noticed when applying this foundation is that it is extremely full coverage and it's extremely pigmented. Also, for me, it was a little difficult to get the hang of how much to use. In this video, you can definitely see that I was not used to it and used way too much. It can also be pretty difficult to spread, so I wanted to show you two different methods of application. On my left side, I'm applying with the Beauty Blender, and on my right side, I'm applying it with my hand. A lot of people do recommend to apply this with a damp Beauty Blender. In fact, when I bought this in Sephora, that's exactly what everyone told me to do with it. I definitely think that there's some validity to that, but I also had some problems with the Beauty Blender side with the foundation catching on dry patches. I tend to have really dry patches right around my mouth and on my nose. It definitely stuck to those dry patches, much worse when applying it with the Beauty Blender. When I applied it with my hands, I personally feel like I liked it a lot better. I think mostly just because you warm the foundation up with your body heat, and that makes it a whole lot easier to spread it around and get it to blend into your skin. But because of that, it turns out to be much lighter coverage when you apply it with your hands. I think if you still wanted that really full coverage effect, you could definitely get it. You just might have to apply it in layers a bit more. During this demo for you, I just chose to do one layer just to show you what kind of coverage you could get. I think you can definitely see that it's still got a sort of satiny finish. You can definitely still see my freckles and stuff through it. Having not used concealer, I have some red spots and stuff and, you know, just spots that were not entirely covered up, and the darkness under my eyes covered up. On the side I used my fingertips, not so much on the side that I used the Beauty Blender, but I do definitely think that's just a matter of layering a bit more. I think just all in all, I would always rather go for a bit of concealer and a lighter application of foundation, but it's really up to you. And if you just wanted to use this, you could definitely layer it up under your eyes for dark circles and on spots and stuff. And I think that would work really well to cover whatever you'd like to. As far as longevity goes for this, I applied this at 9 a.m. and wore it until about 10 or 11 p.m. and strangely enough, I thought it looked better and better as the hours went on. That's pretty magical if you ask me, because every foundation that I've ever put on looks a lot worse as the day goes on. You know what that's like. With this foundation, my skin looked glowier and more natural throughout the day, but definitely didn't get like mega shiny or anything like that. This is a very matte foundation. Even for somebody who doesn't like full-on matteness on my face, I was really blown away by the kind of velvety texture of it. It just looks really good. It looks very matte without being too matte, and it looks a little glowy without being too glowy. You could also definitely use a powder on top of this, maybe only powder in certain spots that you need to. No, the normal spots that you need the powderings. I personally wouldn't go over the whole thing with powder. Okay, let's go a little further into detail about some sort of technical stuff. So let's talk about packaging first. I really like the packaging. It's got a really comfortable pump for your finger. It is only 1 ounce of product, but that kind of makes sense to me because it is so intensely pigmented. I could definitely see some of you mixing this with another foundation or tinted moisturizer. I think the result would be a nice amount of coverage. I would say it's like half of a pump to cover your whole face. For me, that was even pushing it a little. 1 ounce is probably enough for this stuff. So even though it's $34 per bottle, I think it kind of works out. A huge plus for me is the complete lack of smell of this. It honestly doesn't smell like a thing. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't stand those foundations that have those heavy floral scents or whatever scent it is, I'm not into it, and I don't want my face to smell like that. Especially if you kind of have allergies to fragrances or anything, it's completely fragrance free, and I'll give it a clap for that. You go, Kat Von D fragrance freeness, you go. As far as choosing a shade goes, I do think it's important for you to actually go into the store and kind of swatch it on the back of your hand. The differences in the colors within your skin tone are very subtly different, and it can be a little difficult to choose the right one. Now onto the part that some of you may have been desperately waiting for, the tattoo coverage portion. So I don't have any tattoos at all, so I enlisted the help of my friend and his arm to test this out for you guys. The first thing you can see is how little of this you actually need to use to cover a pretty sizable area. I just want to say before I show you this that this is definitely not his color. He's considerably darker than me. I think you can still definitely get the gist from this. I just chose this central tattoo here to cover, and I wanted to leave the rest, kind of compare the final outcome. I think the best way to do this if you are covering a tattoo is with a finger. Because of the warmth and the heat, I think it just helps a lot to kind of work it in and make it look more like it's blending with your skin. I then actually took my beauty blender and kind of cleaned up the edges and faded them so it looked more aesthetically pleasing. I think at the end of this, we were both pretty impressed. I did a pretty impressive job of covering up a tattoo. I did choose a really dark one, and the only thing that we could really see at the end was just very slightly raised skin where the design is, and like a very slight amount of grayness underneath, which might actually be astronomically better if this was his color. I guess if you had a tattoo you didn't like or something, or you needed to cover something up for a job or a job interview, I think if you really took the time and you really did need or want to cover a tattoo up, you could do a pretty decent job of it. So here I'm just showing you in the light of my apartment and then out in the daylight. Okay, so the final verdict for me is that all in all, this is a nice foundation. I would recommend it to those of you who do really want a full coverage foundation, or those of you who are getting photos taken, or maybe you do YouTube videos. It looks great on camera. It lasts a very long time, has a really beautiful finish, a pretty wide color range. And as far as higher end foundations, $34 is definitely lower than your typical brand that Sephora carries. I feel like the cons I've already kind of gone over. I think it's definitely pretty hard to work with this stuff. You do need to get the hang of it and kind of develop a certain way of applying it. I think that would come really easily and naturally with time. A little bit hard to choose your shade, if you ask me. They differ very slightly, so you might want to ask for some help with that. I really hope that helped you out a bit if you're considering buying this. I know that these things are really expensive, and I personally love coming on YouTube and getting these types of reviews, so I really hope I did help you out. If you do have any questions or comments or anything, I'm more than happy to try my best to help you. I'm gonna roll a clip of my last video right here, and you can go just click on that if you'd like. I'd love it if you joined me every week on here. I do DIYs, beauty videos, travel videos, all sorts of fun stuff, and I'd really love to have you join me on the reg. I hope you're all having a really nice week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.